As they pulled in behind Lavoie's truck, and they started, lasers were all over the windows from their rifles.
Ryan rolls down his window, Ryan Payne. He rolls down his window, he puts his hand out the window, and boom!
Immediately a shot went off and he jerked his hands back in.
I had stuck my hands out the window and my head. One of the lasers happened to hit me in the eye, which caused me to jerk my head and everything back inside. And right then a shot was fired.
We're going, they're shooting at us, what the heck?
Then Ryan Payne did get out.
He exits the vehicle quickly. He jumps out of the vehicle and throws his hands in the air. He yells, "There's women in the vehicle." That's what he yells, "There's women in the vehicle."
Obviously they're here for blood. Obviously they've made the decision to kill. So I'm gonna give them what they want.
I've counted the cost and I'm willing to pay it.
Okay, we're here. Go ahead and shoot me. Damn! Trying to. Stay down, stay down. Stay down. Stay down. Stay down. You have to shoot me. Damn it. Are they shooting him? Did they shoot him? You assholes. Oh my God! Okay. Stay down. Is he dead? Don't get out. I'm EMT! Stop it. No!
Are you hit?
No, I'm EMT! No, hold on. Don't do it. Hey, no shooting. Don't do anything. Go to bed. Where the hell is Lavoie? Down.
I can't see.
No! Shut up. Stay down, Ryan. Oh, God! Stay down. Stay down.
The FBI, with our partners, took the first steps to bring this occupation to a conclusion. We worked to ensure that we could do so peacefully and safely, out of harm's way of the citizens here in the county.
A deadly turn of events sparking even more distrust between the FBI and a group of angry militiamen in rural Oregon. One rancher killed and conflicting eyewitness accounts.
As the Bundys were on their way from Burns north to John Day for a discussion about property rights and the federal government. Well, they never got there.
It's time for everybody in this illegal occupation to move on.
I believe Lavoie Finicum was murdered.
The FBI and local police won't explain how it all happened or even name Finicum as the man killed by police gunfire. Robert Lavoie Finicum, a rancher turned malicious spokesman.
We had these same problems in Utah and in Nevada.
59-year-old Shauna Cox from Kanab is one of at least half a dozen people arrested in Oregon.
We need you to get here and stand with us. Whether you're armed or unarmed, you get up here.
They're calling Lavoie a hero in the Patriot movement. His picture now spreading online. Wrongfully taken out, they say, by overly aggressive law enforcement.
I'm asking the federal government to allow the people at the refuge to go home without being prosecuted. To those remaining at the refuge, I love you. Let us take this fight from here. Please stand down. Please stand down.
Are you going to agree? Our freedoms are waning and we'll lose our liberty. Slipping one by one until there's nothing left to see. Are you willing to stand with me?
After the tragic death of Lavoie Finicum, the Oregon protesters are rounded up and rushed off to Portland jails. They will be brought here to a federal court of law where they will receive the final verdict. Hi, I'm Mark Herr with Center for Self-Governance, and this is Governed v. Governing.
So in the van was myself, Ryan Payne, Buddha Cavalier, Mark McConnell, Shauna, and Victoria. Ryan was shot. He was shot in the arm. He literally had a bullet in him, and they took him to the hospital. And so he was not transported in the same vehicle that we were transported in.
run a few x-rays and stuff, decided I wasn't hurt that bad. And then they, moved me out in convoy or out to where the others were at a rest stop between Burns and Band.
So then we go to Burns, and we go by the hospital, and we pick up Ryan. Then we go out to the, it's like a rest stop outside of Burns, and that's when they brought in all the vehicles. There are a whole bunch of dark-colored, like SUVs, different vehicles, and they take us all out and they put us in these separate vehicles. And that's when they put the chains on us, and we have the leg irons.
And so now that we're all together there, then they motorcade all the way to Portland, and they literally go 100 miles an hour the entire way, through towns and everything, just the whole lineup of High Patrol, Oregon State Police, and just flying down the road.
I said, so it's okay if you guys just go in a caravan and travel through the towns at this high rate of speed? You don't slow down for anything, no stoplights, no nothing, they just barrel them through town. Of course, they didn't answer me.
My name is Dwayne Emer, and I'm a defendant in the Bundy case. We've been up for 2 days after they shot Lavoy, and I was trying to open up a dialogue of communication with the FBI because we were told that we were going to be shot on sight. Hi, I love you, my beautiful wife, and my beautiful daughter, Rebecca. I knew we had men on the ground wanting to come in and kill everybody. Make sure you tell my daughter why I died.
I am Rebecca Emer, and the daughter of Dwayne Emer. He was the guy on the horse with the flag at the refuge in 2016. We had to do news reports in 6th grade on everything, and it was all over the news. And Dad's picture was the front headline, and I was like, wow, that's my dad. And then everybody was making fun of me for it. Oh my god, what is he doing? He looks like an idiot. She's related to that guy. And then my teachers were like weird, and they didn't want to talk to me, or they would just treat me differently from all the other kids in class.
I made me the guinea pig and filmed and live streamed my exit from the refuge. When I was in the service, I was exposed to a Bosnian-style checkpoint, and it was the same exact checkpoint that we use overseas. And I had to physically take off my clothes, and they said, drop your drawers, even your underwear, out in the snow and the cold. This is just normal war-style checkpoint. Take off your boots, take off your socks, take off your underwear, and then they clear you when they're fit and ready for you to put your clothes back on. It was to degrade you, to mentally degrade you, and make you submissive.
You know, I didn't really feel comfortable turning myself in.
And so here I am, I'm all boogied out, ready to go, and you guys are gonna watch me die live on Defend Your Base.
I didn't know what's gonna go on, behind the jail walls. I've heard stories, and of course, a lot of the social media people were talking about how we're all gonna get raped and all that stuff, so I wasn't really quite comfortable turning myself in.
Unless my grievances are heard, I will not come out!
David, they're hearing. It's all right. They're hearing. The whole world's hearing. You got 20,000 people hearing. Just go ahead and go out.
I had 2 cell phones in my hand. I had the one from the FBI and the one that I was using to talk with Gavin Simas. He's live streaming the whole thing.
Go on, David. We've got this, man. Stop on the phone!
Chris Ann Paul, talking on this side, and the FBI is telling me and stuff on this side.
If everybody says hallelujah, I'll come out.
Of course, I had asked the FBI, to say the hallelujah, and I would come out.
Saying hallelujah! So I'm walking towards them right now.
Okay, stay calm.
I want to tell you, David. Keep walking, my friend. Hallelujah.
And then we started walking up the hill towards the front gate, and that's where Michelle Fiore and Franklin Graham was. And they let me go over and talk to them, and they said prayers. They had put their arms around me, and they said some prayers, and telling us we're going to be fine. And they put me in a vehicle, and that's when they took us all to this little base. It's like a little FBI base that they had, and that's where they searched or patted us down and made sure we didn't have any weapons. And then from there they transported us to Portland.
They transport us to Portland in the Multnomah County jail system.
And let me tell you, when we came into Portland that night, it was the biggest parade you ever saw. We had sirens everywhere, lights, sirens. It was like we had a huge parade, and they had everybody. They shut down all the streets, put all the red lights on. They had armed guards up and down the streets. When we came in that van, it was unreal. I mean, in our caravan. It was unreal. I've never seen anything like it. It was like, we must have been like serial killers, I mean, it was almost hilarious.
So I was placed in a medical unit because I'd been shot, which was better than the others went to. They all went to segregation, to the hole, they call it.
We got into the bed about around 4 o'clock, probably 3:34. I don't remember exactly. After they booked us in, and then they took me into the cell. Then we were only there for a couple of hours, and then they get up and they do the mug shots, and they did all. And it was ridiculous.
But everything's just concrete floors, concrete walls, steel doors. Small rooms.
They put us in a tremendous amount of stress and tremendous amount of, we were isolated. Up there, we couldn't even talk to each other, see each other. They didn't ever let us even be anywhere close to each other whatsoever at all.
Just simple, your liberty being taken away is enough to crush you.
The very first day, they take us to this jail. They asked us to strip.
They strip search you all the time. That's not happening.
And I had refused at first, and this big guy, a really overweight guy, he started getting ready to beat me up, it looks like.
They treat you as though you're guilty.
And I was like, all right, fine. So I was like, all right, whatever. So I started taking off my clothes, and then, they're all laughing and stuff.
I'm not going to allow them to treat me like I'm guilty when I know I'm not. I'm not going to help them to pretend that I'm guilty.
People who are arrested and thrown into jails, and this is how we were treated, this is how I was treated, they treat you as though you're guilty.
So I began to say things like this: look, I'm not going to strip search, and I'm not going to participate in strip searches anymore, right? And I go, I can't stop you from forcing me, because you could get 5, 6, 7, 8 guys if you want, or 10 guys, which they did at one time. You can strip my clothes off me and do what you want to me. I can't stop you from doing that, but I'm not going to take my clothes off for you and do the things you want me to in front of you. I'm not going to do that.
And whether it's guilty of one crime or another, or whether they treat you all the same, they're all treated terribly.
Nobody is treated like an innocent in the system. You're in irons and shackles, and you're put into a humanly demeaning situation. society may look at that and see the people in the jumpsuits and the shackles and, you know, with your wrists tied to your ankles and all this other stuff that they do, and go, well, these are dangerous people.
And I had such a confidence that what I was doing was right and that I was an innocent man that I wouldn't yield. And so it just got worse and worse and worse, and I spent all that time in solitary confinement. You know, they beat me up, they stripped me, they, you know, damaged my hip, broke my teeth, blew my eardrum. All those things were going on because simply I would not submit to them. And they literally wanted to break my spirit. And I wasn't going to let them, and I knew what I was doing was right.
You know, those jailers are just big dummies who do what they're told. They do what they're told, they do what they're told. They're just men who do what they're told.
Oh, the prison food is pretty awful.
The food is absolutely terrible. I couldn't even eat for 2 or 3 days until I finally got hungry enough to be forced to consume their garbage.
I talked to Ryan Bundy. He said he thought it was bone meal. You know, he swore up and down that it was like bone meal.
They had to train somebody to make it that bad. Nobody can make food that bad by accident. It seriously is that bad.
It was gray, and when you open it up, it was purple inside, and so it's absolutely awful.
The best I could describe it is like slop. It's just like slop. And, you know, like the meat is like bone meal. I mean, that's, you know, if you want to call it meat. I wouldn't call it meat, but it's bone meal, and it's just this ground up mush of probably everything that no one else will eat. And one of the inmates that worked in the kitchen said that several of the boxes that come in say inmate consumption only. And it's just it's horrible, horrible.
They put me in solitary confinement, and I noticed that there was feces on the wall. This is in violation of Oregon law that, you know, they can't be put in any of these rooms where there's feces everywhere. And so I told people about that, and the outside people would call the guard, you know, I guess the warden or whatever. They would complain and saying that they're putting me in unsanitary conditions. And they said, well, they would accommodate me with another room. And they ended up taking me down to this dungeon. Basically, it's like the dungeon of this jail. It's where the worst of the worst go. We're talking absolutely the worst crazy people, where they really throw everywhere. They opened up this little unit block, and the first thing you noticed is the smell. Out of this unit block, the smell of feces and urine is horrible. It's strong smell. And they throw me in there, and inside this, it's like a little small hallway, and there's like four cells, and I'm on like the very end cell, or second to the end. And as soon as you go in there, you notice there's feces all over the wall. In the the hallway, there's feces on the wall there. There's feces on the ceiling. And they open up my door, and there's feces right by the bed that I'm supposed to sleep at. And there's feces on the toilet on the side of it. And so they had told the outside people that they put me in a better room, and here they put me in even a worse situation. And one of the guards came up to me and started laughing and said that I need to cover up the bottom of my cell door, the gap, because the guy over to the end over here, he's going to start trying to fling underneath that door into my room.
And then they gave us an attorney. And when the attorney handed me the piece of paper, it was the charges. And at the very beginning, and I have these original ones, but at the beginning it said that it was the United States versus Ammon Bundy, all in capitals, Ryan Bundy, all in capitals, Ryan Payne, Shauna Cox, Brian Cavalier. I didn't even know that was Buddha's name. I didn't know who Brian Cavalier was. John Ritzheimer. I said, he's in Arizona. Why would he be on there? And then they had Joseph O'Shaughnessy, and I said, Santilli? I mean, I never saw Joseph O'Shaughnessy there. And Santilli, he's media. Why is he on here?
My wife had received a phone call from a detective here in Peoria.
Another occupier, John Ritzheimer, was arrested in Arizona. He had just returned home to see his family.
I remember the feds taking me to the FBI headquarters over here in Phoenix, and I just had nothing to say to them.
I was released after 3 days, okay? I was released after 3 days. That was a miracle. They said nobody was going to be released.
I was held down here in Phoenix for about a month under the wonderful Sheriff Joe Arpaio and his absolute inhumane facility.
And they gave me somebody else's clothes. They opened a door, and there's all these cubicles that have all these different clothes rolled up and stuck in them, kind of like a thrift store.
And I was extradited up to Oregon, and that's also when I really got a taste of what life is going to be like on the terrorist watch list.
So now I have none of my stuff, no ID, no money, no wedding rings, no anything, not even my own clothes, and they pushed me out the door.
They pulled me off the bus first, and they made me stand out on the cold tarmac, and all the other inmates and stuff were handcuffed, and they had shackles on their ankles. And then they did what's called black box. They black boxed me, and they put this black box on your handcuffs so that they can't move at all. And then they put a belly band around you, and they lock you up right there on your waist, so you can't scratch your face, can't scratch your head or anything. It's a really miserable way to be shackled and cuffed. And then I had to be the last one to board the plane. And as I'm boarding the plane and I'm cuffed and I'm coming down the aisle, and all these actual hardened criminals are looking at me like I'm the crazy guy. The only thing missing on me was the Hannibal Lecter mask.
I spent 2 weeks in jail, and I was released from the judge. The FBI could not show anything saying that I was dangerous. So the judge released me back to my house. The most disturbing thing the FBI could find against me is I do that competition sword fighting, and they used a picture of me fighting in front of a crowd of kids in full plate armor to show how dangerous I was, with the kids in the background of it. The judge laughed it out of the courtroom and released me.
My brother and I, Ryan, was down the lower levels of the federal building in Oregon. Judge Jones came down there. He was over the release of us. None of us have been released, and we're wanting to be released. We're actually getting ready to have a release hearing. And here he comes down to the lower levels of the federal building into the dark dungeon, right? With the concrete walls and the steel and the doors and all that. And he comes in. They bring a chair in, and Judge Jones sits. He's in our cell, in our holding cell, right? And it felt like he wanted to. It felt like we were the elephant men, you know, and he wanted to come see the elephants in the cage, you know, kind of, I don't know, it was really strange. Like somehow he wanted to witness us there. So that was strange in itself. I mean, he's a federal district judge. He was been a judge for like 30 years or something like that. And now he's on, you know, meritorious status. And so he only does a little bit of stuff. Well, we took the opportunity, you know, I was like, let's take the opportunity to try to show him that we're normal people with families and that we're suffering. Our families are suffering, you know, and that we need to be released to go home so we can go home to our families. And even if we still had to fight this case, at least we could do it at home, you know. And we began to share with him some kind of this, and he got really nervous about us getting personal with him. right? Really nervous. And he goes, then he had this sheet, he had this paper in his hand. And he goes, well, let me see here. And he goes down, and Ryan was on the list first. And I was kind of sitting to the side, and I got to see that list. And it was a list of all the defendants in both Nevada and Oregon. And off to the side, there was some color coding. There was red, green, and yellow. And he went down that list, and he went to Ryan's name, and he goes over to the color, and he goes, oh, I can't release you. You can't be released. It shows here that you can't be released. And he goes down to me and he does the same thing. I can't release. This was before a release hearing. And so someone was telling him, in some way manipulating him, whatever the situation was, I don't know. But there was a list that was telling that federal district judge whether we could be released or not. Now, what's the point of having release hearings and trials and evidence and witnesses and all of that when it's already predetermined? And who gave him that list?
If you look at who was indicted, it was the Bundy family and mostly anybody that was a militia or an or a veteran. Okay, veterans, anybody that will take a stand that has the knowledge of the capability of using a weapon.
I mean, hearing the news, how they were being portrayed throughout this whole process before they were arrested, oh, these militia guys are just, these militia terrorists are coming in, and you just painting them to be something that they completely were not.
What did we do? We went into a refuge in protest for what they were doing to the agricultural community, especially the Hammonds, by putting them in prison for 5 years. That's what we did, right? We didn't threaten anybody, we didn't hurt anybody, we didn't damage anything, and this is how they react.
The prisoners were grouped into tiers for their subsequent trials. Did the prosecutors and judge do this for courtroom efficiency or political strategy?
Just the trip from the jail to the courthouse, which was next door, 1 block, but the marshals had shut down 3 city blocks, lined the streets with men with high-powered rifles, just so that we could move 1 block from the jail to the courthouse. It was ridiculous. And they did this every time we transported.
It was just a continual escalation because they, I think they even talked about it. I know the marshals were involved in it as well, the U.S. Marshals, who are the ones that oversee and basically are the authority over these pre-detention prisons. I know that they were, spoke about it. There was communication about basically teaching us a lesson.
Again, this whole innocence until proven guilty just wasn't there. I mean, they push you around, force you against the walls, make you put your nose up against everywhere you go. So they don't want you to face them. You're not good enough. You're less than they. And speaking of the marshals, and they want absolute control over you. You're in leg shackles, shuffling around, and those shackles hurt. They dig into your ankles. They hurt.
And that's sort of the apologetics that I was playing there, right? Like, well, there are perspectives that allow for that to be okay.
But it's not.
But you can also see that when somebody is innocent and they enter into this system, well, I'm in shackles and I'm being forced to do everything. I'm now am taken from my family situation. Certainly there's no innocence. And then you're put into the populations with all the people who are, some of them are guilty, some of them are not, some of them are going to trial. You just don't know.
And you're in handcuffs behind your back, and yet they still push you and shove you around. Make you force you to have your nose pointed to the wall everywhere you stop. Of course, when you go into the courtroom, before you get there, the marshals all go and change into suits and ties. So they take all their tactical gear off so that in the public eye, they look like, oh, they're all just nice guys.
You have the theater And the courtroom is a beautiful theater. I think even attorneys understand themselves to be partaking in a theater of sorts. You have this beautiful facade of due process taking place. But behind closed doors, when that all ends, right before you come into that facade, they take off all your shackles. You're no longer this criminal that you've been treated the entire time. So there's the presentation to the public and even the judge. Is the judge aware of what's going on in the prison system and with the transport and everything else? We discussed many times that attorneys and judges and probably federal officers, they should all have to do some amount of time. They should all be required to be in that system for a period of months just to give them some empathy.
Hi, this is Morgan Philpott. In about 2016, I became the attorney for Ammon Bundy because of circumstances in Nevada and Oregon. My introduction into the case came because I had been working with a man named Rick Kerber. And Rick, his attorney at that time, was a man named Marcus Mumford. And Marcus was an exceptional trial attorney. I would say probably the best I have ever known. Rick and Marcus made a mean team.
And helping on the legal defense team for Ammon Bundy up in Oregon for the Malheur Wildlife Refuge case. Morgan Philpott, another dear friend of mine, and Marcus Mumford and I.
In Oregon, we took more of an offensive position. And we feel that we have exhausted all prudent measures and have been ignored. And it has been left to us to decide whether we allow these things to go on or whether we make a stand so they will not happen to other people across this country. You know, we actually felt like we had to, or at least me, and I'm just going to speak to me, I felt like I had to do something to stop what was happening to people like the Hammonds.
It's not about me. It's about America.
And in Oregon, although there was a tremendous amount of lies, we just felt all we had to do is get in front of the jury of why we were there, what we were doing, and what was the truly intent of our hearts.
Only 6 other defendants would go to trial with Ammon and with the ideas that Marcus and Rick and I had come up with for their defense. Now what's funny is I'm sitting in this meeting of attorneys and we bring up the adverse possession defense.
We're going to stay here until we have secured the land and the resources back to the people of Harney County.
Constitution.
That building is the people's building.
The first thing that every law school student learns, and this is why it just, I don't blame these attorneys for rejecting the concept, right? Because every law school attorney learns you cannot adversely possess land from the government. And yet here we are saying we want, as part of our defense and strategy, adverse possession, which anybody in their right mind would immediately reject if you've been to law school.
One of the things that adverse possession requires is for you to take claim of it and also improve it and then beneficially use it. One of the things that we intentionally were doing and we were documenting was doing improvements.
It's very important that we try to keep things neat, tidy, preserve it so that nothing is destroyed.
These crimes that they're being charged with are crimes of intent. And if your intent is not to commit a crime, but is to go and adversely possess land, even though you legally can't do it, then your intent is not to commit a crime, it's to adversely possess land. And I haven't talked about this, but once we got familiarized with why they were there and what the government had done to the Hammonds, for example, we knew these guys weren't domestic terrorists. I mean, that was ridiculous. And the fact that the government was so willingly painting them as domestic terrorists, given everything we had started to see, was offensive.
Across the United States, between 90 to 95% of all criminal cases end in the accused taking the prosecution's plea deal. In the Oregon case, many of the lower-level tiered defendants took plea deals from the prosecution. Were the refuge protesters confessing their guilt, or were they caving to the pressure and threat of a lifetime in prison?
What they did to us and what they do to people in there is they literally throw you in there and threaten you with your life for many, many, many years. They keep you away from your family. They feed you horrible food. They do not let you, and many times even go outside, even see the sun. And you do this day in and day out, and you're literally, it is horrible. It is mental torture in every way.
There are folks who do commit crimes, and when they're going through that system, they may not feel as if they're being treated as innocent, and it doesn't occur to them the same way that it would for someone who is innocent, because they're aware of their guilt and why am I being treated in such and such a way, which is unfortunate, because people who are innocent, who are aware of their innocence, right, then they are being treated in a way that is the opposite of the way that an innocent person should be treated.
And why do they do that? Meanwhile, some prisoners, on the outside, their family doesn't have enough to pay for the phones, and so they're literally isolated. And why do they do this? To break you down so that you will take a plea.
We as a society have agreed that we won't treat you as a guilty person until it has been proven before a jury of your peers, or until you decide that you're gonna plea. Justice Scalia, I believe it was Justice Scalia, was asked if the same question: if there was one thing he could change about the system, what would it be? And he said it would be the system of plea bargaining.
Federal prosecutors have like a 97 or 98% conviction rate, which most of those, it's probably in the 90%, are from pleas.
There's a lot of people who are imprisoned in the United States that they really didn't do what they're imprisoned for, but they were put under such duress, such stress, such fear that they succumbed and took that plea deal.
What happens is people become afraid. They think that this is going to be their life, the rest of their life. And then the prosecutors dangle 7 or 8 years and say, look, rather than the rest of your life, we'll let you out in 7 years. And maybe in 5 years, we'll let you out on a halfway house, and then you get another bunch of probation and all that. And people go, well, that's better than the rest of my life. I don't think I can do this for the rest of my life. And they take a plea, and they lie, literally, do not tell the truth by taking that plea.
There was a feeling of helplessness. I myself, I took a plea out. I plead out. I got a wife and kids that I need to provide for. I was facing a lot of years, and I wasn't willing to risk that. I saw the fastest way to get back to my family, and being there for them was to plea out, unfortunately. But we got to look at the entire thing. This entire endeavor started from our lack of faith in the judicial system.
I believe in what he stood for. I believe him standing for the Hammonds. I believe there was an injustice there, and I believe what he did was right. And, we're taught to love our neighbors, and he went and stood for his neighbor.
My perception and kind of what I was being fed was that I was going to be helping by taking a plea deal. And my peers in the whole thing, I guess you could say, were saying, no, we're here to illuminate. We need to be shining this light.
Even I was like, no plea deal.
Which is what
we're not going to be
she
taking a
had
plea
also
deal
said.
because I believe you guys are going to be getting off.
Just like we have a military industrial complex, we now have a private prison industrial complex. And these private for-profit prisons, they're sending lobbyists in. And by the way, they have shareholders. These shareholders of these for-profit prisons are representatives. That's a scary, sobering thought.
When you take a plea, they're saying, well, you can't plea to something you didn't do because you'll be perjuring yourself. So if I admit to performing an act, then I have to actually admit to performing the act. But I had to make very clear to my attorneys that I couldn't possibly plea to what I was being accused of, because it was not my intent to conspire with people to threaten, intimidate, or impede federal officers.
The judges and our representatives, they all have stock and they're shareholders in these private prisons. So they have this money and they send in these lobbyists to wine and dine our politicians, right? And they get our politicians to vote on things like mandatory minimums, which have proven do not deter crime at all.
I still haven't actually ever said that I did what they're accusing me of. And yet I am convicted still, yet I have served a sentence. If they had cared to listen to what I was saying and how I was saying it, the judge would have stopped me and said, Mr. Payne, you are not admitting guilt, right? But she didn't. And I think that goes to the point of the system's intention or sort of, what they were perceiving behind the scenes. Nope, you're guilty, that's great. We know you're guilty, we want you guilty. And so even if you're not going to openly admit guilt, we're still going to continue to accept your plea.
If I could change one thing, hopefully it wouldn't change too much, but only for the better, would be his plea deal. But it was still short-lived. It wasn't 5 years, 10 years, anything like that. But just for the fact of not having all of his rights, I think that we would take the plea deal back.
Very obvious collusion going on between the prosecution and the judge. You have a federal judge, you have federal prosecutors, you even have federal public defenders, and they're upholding these federal statutes. It's federal. It's not a fair trial.
Prosecution and the judge, you could tell they were in on it together. If you didn't know anyone in there and you came and sat in that room.
The prosecutors, they lied a lot. They would exaggerate things. And they're always there to try to screw, us, the defendants, as much as they can.
These judges are colluding with the prosecution and helping steer a guaranteed guilty verdict.
The FBI agents that were sitting right in front of us, and then everybody else is over here, were coaching the witnesses, and you could tell they were. And I'm sure the jury saw that. I saw that.
That we were not allowed to talk about the First Amendment or the Second Amendment. That was not allowed to be used as a defense.
Coaching, you could see their heads nodding, and if we nodded our heads, we were out. But the FBI personnel, they nodded their heads. Greg Bretzing was right in front of me, and he was nodding his head to Sheriff Ward and, telling him, don't you dare go there. You could tell he was like this or his body language. Like a coach. Yes, absolutely. And I know the jury had to have seen that. I know they had to have seen it.
They're like weasels, the prosecutors, I thought. That's my impression about them.
The judge cued the prosecution when they needed to object. And that's illegal.
There were moments in the trial where the judge would sustain objections that hadn't even been made.
For the life of me, I can't figure out why they call them Your Honor. Because they have no honor. If they had any honor, they would honor the Constitution. They would honor their oath to uphold it.
There was two things that multiple jury members said that they did not like and that swayed their personal opinion. She wouldn't allow scripture to be read, But Ammon had it memorized, so he said it anyways. And she wouldn't allow the Constitution to be read. And he had it memorized, and he said it anyways.
Anna Brown was her name in Oregon.
Ryan Bundy was representing himself, and he did a phenomenal job at it.
I did not have an attorney because of my firsthand experience. I knew that I could recall things, either principles or whatever happened, that I could speak in a way that an attorney could not speak for me.
You know, you have attorneys that they're what am I looking for here? So they have to pass the bar, right? And so they have the bar always looming over their head. Their entire career is in jeopardy if they do anything against the judge or don't go with the judge's game.
I couldn't communicate to an attorney than an attorney communicate to the jury. I needed to have that opportunity. And so, yes, I'm not an attorney. I'm not trained in the law. There's a lot of things that I couldn't do and wouldn't have been able to do. But as a group and as a team, the attorneys were able to do their expert thing. I was able to bring a more personal aspect into it. And so the questions I was able to ask were from a different angle.
They constantly have their career in jeopardy, so they can't sit there and actually try to pinpoint or hit on a subject every time. Once a judge says that's it, we're not talking about the Constitution in here, then that was it.
And that's why I had to go pro se.
And none of those attorneys are going to risk their career going against that judge.
I had to speak for myself, but I was afraid to do that.
And Ammon's attorney said, I have never seen a case like this, to where we have to argue half the day to get a witness on the stand.
Pro se is you become your own attorney. And that's why the judge was upset with me.
And she would not want any of our witnesses. She would eliminate most of them. And if she did let them on, then there was just very little they could say. And yet she would sit there and yell at our defense attorneys for being unorganized and unprepared. And it's like, we were prepared. We actually shipped people up here from Idaho. We were prepared, but you just sent them all home.
And so there was zero expectation that we could win. Zero. Except from the supporters. You know, I think they had some faith and hope.
It was the most horrendous court I've ever seen. The judge was nasty. Judge Brown was really nasty to Ammon and Ryan. She was belittling, especially Ammon. She was belittling them, calling them all kinds of stupid stuff like you're the leader, and chewing them out all the time. Just nasty.
We had all these ideas about what we would do with adverse possession, including the filing of pretrial motions, trying to prep it for introduction at trial, and we got shut down every single way that the court could shut us down on that issue.
I was kind of naive. I didn't know exactly what to expect with this trial. I had a public defender, and he was telling me that, you know, these hearings were going on like almost weekly. They were having hearings, and he was telling me that he had it covered, that I didn't really need to be there, but you know, I should probably attend one just so I could get an understanding of it.
The judge and the prosecutor made it very difficult for us to present our case. In fact, I think when we were trying to present our defense, they were saying that we can't present that defense because it's not related to the charges that we're being charged with.
But what I learned was those hearings are what determine the trial. Trials are won and lost in those pre-trial hearings because that's where you argue what you can bring in for evidence.
The government will put in a motion limiting what can be said. Well, wait a second. I understood that it's supposed to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And now they're saying what testimony has to be limited.
Ken Medenbach, for example, took the stand, and every time he's trying to talk, they're objecting. The prosecution is objecting at every opportunity that he has to try and talk. And the judge is letting it go. She's letting them object and shut down every opportunity that we were trying to have to bring in the truth. And finally, Ken Medenbach, it was prophetic. I mean, he looks over to the judge and he says, "Your Honor, I swore an oath to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. You are prohibiting me from telling the whole truth." And it just sent a shockwave through the courtroom.
We went through the process of our American judicial system, which we found to be completely corrupt. We weren't allowed to bring in evidence to defend ourselves.
The only way we were allowed to introduce adverse possession because of the government's motions to the court and because of the court's decisions, the only way we were allowed to introduce the theory of our defense was to do it through Ammon's testimony specifically.
The leader of the armed occupation, Ammon Bundy, took the stand today. Bundy said he had no choice but to testify in his own defense, saying it was the only way to get the truth to the jury.
She would not allow us to talk about the Hammonds, about the Constitution, about what the federal government was doing to the people, the bureaucracies, the BLM, the Forest Service, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. She wouldn't let us talk about, for example, Harney County's economy, how it was being, decimated by the federal agencies, right? And what she kept saying is that, well, you can't use that as a defense because it's not applicable to the charges.
Now you think about that, and as a criminal defense attorney, that is horribly offensive.
And we kept saying, well, that was the whole reason why we were there. The whole reason why we were there is for the Hammonds. And the jury's not even going to know about the Hammonds or who they are or nothing. But that was the reality.
Because what you're saying to me is that the theory of my defense can only be introduced if I'm willing to put my client, who has constitutional rights against testifying, that in order to get my theory of defense in, I've got to put my client on the stand.
They have literally created a system where they can charge you with whatever they want to charge you with, and then only allow you to argue about the charges that they chose.
They didn't want any discussion about the ownership of the land, which is the crux of the problem again, as where we talked about earlier. So the very purpose for which we were there, she doesn't want discussed.
And a good criminal defense attorney will understand why that predicament is unfair and untenable and shouldn't have been forced upon Ammon.
This is the con that they play. And then they tell the American people that, well, they had their fair day in court. They had their day in trial.
Fortunately for us, Ammon wanted to testify. And Ammon wanted to tell his story. Ammon would often say, "Sunlight is the best disinfectant. Let me get up and tell the truth." I think that the judge conceded that the government's arguments were correct, that this trial wasn't going to be allowed to become a trial that kind of reversed how we looked at the parties. In other words, we weren't going to talk about what the government did wrong. This was about whether or not the defendants had committed a crime, and whether or not the government had done something wrong, generally speaking, and there's a lot of eccentricities and technicalities to this in case law and in court, but generally, we were not going to be allowed to talk about all the different things the government had done wrong.
You're limited on when you call a witness, but if you're going to take the stand, which most attorneys will say, do not take the stand in your own defense. But there's so much more you can say if you're the one that's on the stand.
We had photographs that could be introduced through Ammon that showed Ammon talking about adverse possession.
Basically, the plan here is to take
all of these property titles and transfer them back to the people.
Boy, I tell you, when the government saw that, they just went nuts. They didn't want anything like that in front of the jury, even though it was true.
Almost everybody had to take the stand in their own defense. And when they were asked, you're not being forced to do this, I think they all said, yeah, we are.
We live in a day where anybody can go online and find almost anything, where we carry phones and we have ready access to information. It's an age of information, not an age of keeping information from people. So I think the government and the court's efforts, whether justified or not, offended the jury, because they felt like, why are you trying to keep information from me? Don't do that. And I think the jury rejected that effort. And I think it drove them to the defendants and to side with the defendants.
I think it was in those moments where all the jurors were like, oh boy. Okay, now what's the real story?
Is these allegations that came out from the government against these defendants, that they were trying to build a militia, that they were engaged at the refuge in activities like learning how to forcibly stop cars and remove drivers of cars and put up roadblocks at the refuge to prevent people from coming in, which was the opposite of the truth. They were very welcoming. They welcomed everybody. They accommodated everybody. They cleaned up the refuge, which was a pigsty at the time.
We've come here to work. We've not come here to sit as children and stamp our feet and demand that certain things are met. We're going to go to work.
On a tour, we saw no weapons, just a dozen or so people who took over unoccupied buildings.
The media and FBI weaponized extreme white, anti-government domestic terrorism labels against unconvicted American citizens.
Armed anti-government protesters.
Anti-government militants.
These white guys that came in with their weapons.
Well, that's kind of racist, white guys.
The labels affected public opinion and how the accused were treated while detained in prison. Although innocence until proven guilty is a long-held legal doctrine, it seems that due process in this case was being set aside to advance an unknown political objective.
We are subpoenaing you as a witness because of the Malheur Refuge case. Have you heard of it?
Yeah, but what did I witness? I didn't witness anything besides I don't know the guy.
But you
I Googled him up,
but you were at the refuge for a bit, weren't you?
Well, I brought 20 donuts, that's about it.
So you did go out there, okay. And did you ever use a different name when you were there?
Yeah, I usually go under John.
John? And did you go under John Kilman?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So we're sitting in the courtroom, and I realize that I've been out and I've been able to speak with some of the co-defendants outside. And I'm getting all these pieces put together, and I'm hearing about different people. And I find this guy's name, and his name is John Kilman.
We discovered that there were 15 informants, secret agents, on the refuge with us. 15.
So I got all the information on this person, and I knew that he was undercover. And I said, I went to my attorney, and I even had the guy's phone number. And I went to my attorney, and I said, I want this guy subpoenaed. She said, what for? I said, I don't know.
We only really discovered the identity of 3 or 4 of them. Now, and then in fact, that had a lot of effect on the case, because whatever an agent does to further the crime, so to speak, can't be held against us.
Lisa, who was Wampler's attorney, was standing behind her, and she caught on to what I was trying to tell her, and then they started talking. And I gave them the information. And then they got so excited that I saw that they caught fire, and I went, go out, go get them.
There was this video footage that the government just couldn't wait to play. And it was this footage of a bunch of guys down at what was called the boat ramp. And they were all firing off guns. Tiffany Harris and Lisa Maxfield, who represented Shauna Cox and Neil Wampler. They had discovered this witness who people had talked about as having kind of instigated these events, the shooting down at the refuge, the training to stop cars, putting up roadblocks, manning the towers, you know, kind of creating this sense of a militia running the refuge under Ammon Bundy.
The thing that they kept using over and over and over in the court.
The government took that and kind of said, see, look at these militaristic guys and look at them training on how to stop cars.
To try to convict these guys of how dangerous they were, right? These are farm boys with deer rifles. They aren't militants. They don't know anything. And he gets out there and they videotape them practice target shooting.
Tiffany in particular, I think, really went out and sought to find this guy. And credit to her because she believed her client. And that's hard to do in these days where so many criminal defense attorneys lose against a government that's just so powerful. And she went out and found this guy who was named Fabio Managgio.
Fabio Managgio. He's not even from America, okay? But he works for the government. And he's an undercover. And they bring him in, okay? Fabulous Fabio. He saved our bacon.
He's the one that organized and operated the shooting practice, and they used that shooting practice against us until it was discovered, and the jury could then see the lie that was being put forth by the government. Well, how many more of those took place? We don't even know who the agents are. We know that I can't even figure out how we learned that there were 15, but they wouldn't disclose who they were. So if we don't know who they were, we don't know what they did. And so the jury could see the government lies.
Across the nation, supporters and detractors of the so-called leaders of the Malheur protest waited with great anticipation for the jury's decision. Would the so-called leaders of the Malheur protest be, in effect, found guilty or innocent of the media and government's extreme white, anti-government, domestic terrorism labels?
I think a lot of us were demoralized. More demoralizing is when you look over at the jury stand and you'll see the juries. Some of them are sleeping. So that's demoralizing. You know, it's like, oh wow, these people don't even listen. So what's their decision going to be at the end of all this?
I was a basket case. I don't know how else to describe it. And the jury, they selectively picked from Portland, which I had been to Portland a number of times at that point, and I knew that they didn't think anything like me. I knew that they didn't know anything about our rural thinking, our rural way of life, and I was so nervous.
We fasted and we prayed, and we had people across this nation, across this world, that was praying for us. And we saw the miracles. And we asked that they would have the ability to see past the lies that were coming and the evidence that we couldn't present, because we had 45 witnesses one day, we got 3.
We were like, pray for the jury, pray us as Americans, dig deep to what you truly believe in, and those are in our prayers. And I know that through that, his testifying, the Spirit, this was a moment to decide, who are we as Americans? What do we really believe in? Are you okay with Scripture not being read in courtroom? Are you okay with the Constitution of the United States not being read in the courtroom?
The judge, when the verdict came in, the judge, she's kind of pompous. I think she's pretty sure of herself.
When the judge read the verdict,
we all prayed for the jury to see through the lies.
And started to go through the not guilties. You could tell by the look on her face that she was absolutely shocked.
And they did.
Not guilty, everybody!
And the Bundys would always pray that the government would trip on their own traps, and they did.
The jury gives her the verdict first. She gets to read it before she announces it to the people. And they hand her the piece of paper. She looks at it and she's like, well, alrighty then. Just like, and then she reads that we're not guilty.
Oregon was amazing. You can have these hardcore right-wing people that sit there and bash the liberal left, but there was people from the liberal left that set my friends free and saw through the lies that were being fed to them.
Nobody believed. There were attorneys for other defendants who were not in that case, who I was told sat in the back saying, these guys are idiots. They're all going to jail.
He had an email, because he was in court. And so the kids were getting off the bus, and I remember grabbing them off the bus, and we knelt as a family right there in the dirt, around the cactuses in the dirt. And I said, each one of you pray. Each one of you say a prayer. And so we all said a prayer. And just then he sends me this text, and he's like, it's not guilty. I mean, I was just on cloud 9.
I knew God was with us. I didn't know that he would give us the victory then, but I knew eventually he would, and we saw that today. Eventually God gave the victory. So it's just a matter of faith and doing what was right.
The predetermined narrative of the judge and the prosecution of their guilt was overturned by a jury of the defendant's peers. In this instance, the governing was overruled by the governed. Now that the so-called leaders of the Malheur protest were found innocent, the federal marshals take over Judge Anna Brown's courtroom.
So before they acquitted us, before it was open, I was downstairs with Marcus Mumford, my attorney. And he said, and Rick Kerber, and I don't think Morgan was there, but he said, Ammon, I want you to understand that the marshals do not have a proper hold on you once you're acquitted in Oregon.
Throughout this entire case, the U.S. Marshals maintain vigilance over locking these defendants down because these guys, in their minds, are domestic terrorists.
You see, so he said legally, if you're acquitted, which we believed at that point I was going to be, if you're acquitted, then I'm going to argue for your release. And he said that they're either going to arrest me or tase me.
These marshals did not like our client, and arguably, maybe not even us. So Marcus gets up, and he is not in the well. He's at counsel table. And all attorneys, most, will get up and kind of pace a little bit as they talk or approach the podium. Marcus gets up and starts to make an argument that the marshals, first of all, that the court must release Ammon. And second, that the marshals have to release him.
Chaos inside a federal courtroom as not guilty verdicts are handed down in the case of a wildlife refuge protest.
Now, the judge doesn't like this concept because she knows there's a prosecution in Nevada. But she also knows that if you're going to keep him, you got to have an order to do so, and there isn't one.
Yeah, so after the verdicts were read, the court said, "Hey, you're free to go, but the marshals might have something to say about it." Yeah, they had surrounded me at that point, and so I just turned to them and I said, "Guys, show me what papers you have." And the next thing I know, they just had a hold of me, and then they were twisting my legs and put me to the ground, and then they tased me.
And they attacked Mumford. He said, give me the paperwork that says that they have a warrant for these U.S. Marshals to hold him here. And they did not prove up any paper or bring it to him. And he tried to stop them from taking Ammon. And they grabbed all the U.S. Marshals, attacked Mumford, and throws him to the ground. And they took, I mean, there was like 8 of them on him, and they tased him.
In front of the United States Attorney, doesn't assault anybody, doesn't touch anybody, doesn't throw a piece of paper on the ground. And when he gets surrounded by at least a dozen federal agents, he puts his arms up in the air and says, "What are you doing?" And they throw him to the ground.
And so they literally tased him. Then they drugged me. It was interesting. They drugged me. They drugged my brother Ryan out, and they drugged David Fry. And David Fry had been acquitted on all charges and had no hold in Nevada, nothing.
If the jury just found me not guilty, how come they're still treating me as a guilty person? You know, making me wear all these chains and stuff.
They literally beat him to the ground and handcuffed him and drug him down. Here he was, an acquitted man of all charges with no other charges on him.
They attacked me. They tackled me and threw me to the ground and put their knees on my back and all that as an innocent person.
And he still was transported in belly chains, handcuffs, leg irons.
I think what happened at the end is very symbolic of the inappropriate escalation of force by the federal government.
I guess in this new court system, you're not a free person until they finish the paperwork. I was always under the impression that the jury was the final say, not paperwork.
David Fry is free.
I was very excited to finally get out of there. I was a little shocked about the amount of people that were waiting outside for me to come out. I remember one of the girls who bring me pizza. She remembers me saying that I wanted pizza at the refuge or something, so she got me the pizza and said, here's your pizza. so that was nice. I was a little overwhelmed. There was all these people, and of course, you're in nine months in jail. Most of the time, you're by yourself in your cell and stuff, so you're not so used to so many people.
We're gonna come right through here. We'll follow you. Take care, man. Yeah, you too, man.
Hey, 6 days before trial, they charged me with digging the hole.
Well, how big was the hole?
The hole was 4 foot by 7 foot. They went through 4 deadlines about new charges and blew the judge off, and they were still able to add a charge 6 days before trial. The law says 30 days. I'm headed home to go ride my pony for a couple months. The courthouse, and I believe it was Maxine says, "Well, what will you do now?" I said, "Well, I'll probably ride my horse to prison." And I was thinking, the judge just a minute ago told me I'd be going to Sheridan, 250 miles from my house. I could ride 250 miles. So I said, well, I'll probably ride my horse to prison.
I didn't believe that it was going to be okay. I was thinking negatively, like, oh my God, something's going to happen. I'm going to lose him.
Right before Christmas, they found out I was riding my horse to prison in real life. And they changed prisons and sent me to Lompoc, California, which I ended up riding 1,100, 1,300 miles to prison, all the way down to almost LA. The last ride for freedom.
I was really scared, and almost anything would make me cry.
I'm headed to Lompoc, California to go to federal prison.
And you're riding your horse to prison, sir?
Yes, I'm riding Hellboy to prison.
People didn't know. I was like, yeah, my dad's riding to prison on his horse, and they're like, nuh-uh. And then there's videos, and everybody followed the videos and the podcasts and everything.
I left day after Christmas, and it took like 35 days to get there.
That time, it actually felt like people were with me instead of separating me off. They were supporting me. Like my friend Chloe, her family was really supportive.
Because they changed the distance, it opened up a lot more visibility to what was going on.
Everybody would ask how he is. I'd have to tell them, oh, he's doing good so far, almost there. And then, sorry.
We had complete news crews and cameras and communities coming out to support me, and it was pretty much a parade all the way to Lompoc, California.
Throughout the Govern v. Governing series, we have witnessed the political weaponization of labels and government. The governed were labeled by the media domestic terrorists, right-wing extremists, and white supremacists, while the governing weaponized the government to create a perceived enemy of the state. What sort of justice do you want? Innocent until proven guilty, or guilty until proven innocent? What's your final verdict?
Next time on The Final Verdict.
When the trial ended and they were acquitted, the Bundys were acquitted, and the attorney was tased, and that whole scenario happened. And they were immediately grabbed and then taken down to Nevada. I knew something was horribly wrong.
Bunkerville rancher Cliven Bundy put in handcuffs.
We didn't expect this. It was kind of like unreal that it wasn't really happening in our country.
FBI came in. They were ready for a battle in Fallujah.
Jack said that if they do drag him back there, he's going to die in prison.
Why did he take the plea deal?
They said that if he didn't take it, that they were going to go pick up his friend Jack Comerford, who had cancer.
So anyway,
the judge herself calls a sidebar, and Eric Parker is ripped from the stand and no longer allowed to testify.
Throughout the whole ordeal, in the beginning I thought, well, I've got my Sixth Amendment right to a speedy trial. I've got a speedy trial right. And then, boom, I got no speedy trial right. Well, I've got the right to call witnesses. And then, boom, we don't get witnesses. They get around that. And then, so, well, okay, but I've got the right to testify on my own behalf. And that's what's going to save me. I kept falling back on the Constitution. I just had my last defense taken away from me.
Our legislator, Dorothy Moon, took it upon herself in writing a letter and gathering support. We helped facilitate gathering signatures for that letter. She turned that into Raul Labrador. Raul Labrador took that letter to Jeff Sessions, had a personal meeting.
The second trial ended. We had an 11-1 to acquit. And then I heard they were going to have a third trial.
The unethical, potentially illegal behavior that was highlighted by Special Agent Wooten as a whistleblower in an email that, or it looks like an email, that we have confirmed the veracity of.
What's the impact of the Larry Wooten memo?
Answered prayer.
When she gets the evidence of the snipers, and it's on the record, they're snipers, she immediately is like, I threw a guy off the stand for mentioning snipers. Yeah, my husband.
Societally speaking, and in our law, we agree that a person who has been convicted can be subjected to punishment. But when you are not convicted, you cannot be. And Ammon was chronically punished.
As a citizen of Idaho, it was our duty to stand up for our fellow constituent, Ammon Bundy.
There's moments where I needed my better half.
And I've been a political prisoner for 700 days. I came in here as a free man. I ain't even leave as a free man.
But I never dreamed that they would hold him without bail for 2 years.
But I never imagined it would take 2 years.